Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, continuing our coverage here at the Sundance Film Festival 2019. I am here with the director of The Mustang, Laure, and I know I'm going to mess up your last name, so please pronounce it as beautifully as you did before we started recording.
So it's Laure de Clermont-Tonnerre. Oh. It's very long and very French. Sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry at all. That's amazing. How did you come to this project? I mean, I was blown away by the just the sense of realism. You're working with horses, a lot of horses, and based on a true story. So how did you come to this project?
So I read an article by coincidence in France in a newspaper about pet partnership program in prison, and there was in this prison in Strasbourg, close to Paris. So I was very intrigued by this out-pairing men-animals in this correctional facility. I love animals. I've always been very fascinated by the sense of punishment and life in prison. So for me, it felt like those two fields were combining in such a very interesting way. So I needed to go there and to study. So I from that experience, going in this prison in Strasbourg and following the therapists who were entrusting small animals, rabbits, chinchillas, mouses, birds even, I wrote Rabbit, my short film that premiered here 4 years ago. And when I was shooting Rabbit in the US, because this is where I started to direct and I wanted to keep doing it, and it was the same crew, so I did it in Rikers Island. I kept digging into the subject that I thought was fascinating, and I found out about the horses in Nevada, and the same program was wild horses. So from the rabbit to the horse, I went to actually write my feature film, and I did a lot of research because I got very passionate about this training and how the man was so affected by the relation with the animal and how impactful it was for their life and for their confidence. So this is like from Paris, reading by coincidence an article, thus it brought me to Nevada.
Well, it's amazing when you see the transformative nature of our lead character dealing with the horses. I mean, the horses they're prisoners as well, right? Taken from the wild, brought into captivity, and what I love is this is a story about healing. Yeah. I mean, both the horse and I'm forgetting the lead character's name. Roman, that's right. Roman, his last name is sort of
Coleman.
Roman Coleman, yeah. And he's sort of Bruce Dern's character kind of makes fun of his name. Roman yes. Coleman, that your name? Where did you find him? The cast is so incredible. I mean, there's such a realism. At all levels, I can't recall if I've seen the actor who played Roman in another film, but he was spectacular.
He's spectacular, yes. Matthias Schoenaerts was discovered in Bullhead. It was a wonderful film, and then he did Rust and Bones by Jacques Audiard. We met. He read the script, and he was very touched personally by this story. His mother was doing meditation in prison and teaching in prison. So he understood violence and anger really well in such a very deep, personal way that it felt so immediate. When we met, I was like, finally, I found my character. I was like, I was living with a ghost in my head for so long, writing it. And I was like, who is it? Who is Roman? And Matthias responded so well, and it was kind of obvious. And I got lucky because all the cast process was like that. I met someone, and I was like, wow, this is, especially all the actors that responded to the script and to the characters and wanted to meet were very crossed by the themes in such a personal way. Jason Mitchell actually was he tells this story, so I'm not like revealing something that's a secret, but he got in and out of juvenile facility, the actor who plays Henry, when he was a kid, and get actually saved by acting, because otherwise he was kind of like prison or being an actor, and just being an actor and it saved his life. So I felt that everyone who got involved in this project were very passionate and very driven by a personal sense. And that was actually what made the film so realistic and so authentic.
Well, and also what just impressed me so much about the film was how the dialogue is sparse, and it's so it's used in such a way that just, I mean, Roman for the first half of the movie has very few lines of dialogue, but it makes everything so meaningful. And I just thought that was just incredibly effective. And I'm not exactly sure where you shot it, but everything just rang so true. Can you talk about that production? And then also just working with horses. I mean, they say working with animals and children is difficult.
Yes.
So
yes. Actually, we found like an amazing horse trainer who had a huge, long time experience with horses and camera, and knew how to find the right horses, to pair them together so that we could build the personality of the horse. We had like a wild one, a semi-wild one, and like a very well-trained one, so that we could have all the steps of the training. And we were switching horses, and also you cannot work with the same horse for like there's a limitation of hours, like children. So I was obviously scared about this process and anticipation, because we had such a short schedule. But I have to say that the horses were amazingly well responsive and trained, and we didn't have any problems at all. It was crazy. Actually, it was kind of like the biggest surprise. I had more problems with men than horses. You know?
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. There are some frightening moments with the horses. Yeah. I'm sure that was the intention, and it just rang so true. Tell me about Robert Redford's involved with this project. Yes. How did that come about?
So I presented my short film here, and at the same year, I was presenting my first draft of the script at the Sundance Labs. So I arrived here in Utah in January 2015, just right before the festival, for the week of the lab, the screenwriting lab in the resort at Sundance. And after 2 days, Robert Redford was there and was like talking to us, and very, very, very involved in this process of like encouraging new voices and young students. And he came to me and he was, I love your script. We have something in common. We love horses. And I was like, oh, I have something in common with Robert Redford. That's definitely very special. And he was like, I know really well those programs. I auctioned 2 Mustangs in the prison. I'm fighting to preserve those wild horses. I have like the sanctuary, Return to Freedom, that he supports and that preserved like hundreds and hundreds of wild horses. So he's extremely moved and deeply involved in this environmental cause, because it's really what it is about. There's so many wild horses, and there's no more food, no more sustain, no more water. They're chased by farmers because they don't cost any money, and that they're just like running into and supply for the lands. I mean, there's so many problems about them. No one really know what to do with them. And there's some the BLM decided to put the horses in those holding facilities, and eventually do this partnership with prisons. But it's still a problem. It's still like a huge issue with those horses. And so we talked a lot about it, and he actually introduced me to a lot of people who knew a lot about horses and Mustangs. And then I did a second lab, the directing lab, which was like 3 months later, and he was there, very present with all of us, and he comes on set, and he's kind of like advises and give. So he's a wonderful advisor and support and help. And at the end of this lab, it was like, look, I want to godfather this project. I feel deeply, it's close to my heart, and I'd like to support it and to be an executive producer on it and to help you along this process. And I was like, well, I mean, this is so special, and so I felt so honored, and there was a wonderful collaboration with Robert Redford, and I felt very, very grateful. So he since 5 years is like the first person involved in this project and helped every years, in very different levels. He really is the godfather of the project. He's really like, without him, I don't know if I would have been able to make it.
Can you tell, because we can get into a little inside baseball on the podcast, because a lot of our listeners are filmmakers themselves or aspiring filmmakers. Can you tell me about the Sundance Labs? A lot of people don't know that Sundance is a very nurturing, it's not just a festival, it's year-round programs supporting, emerging voices. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's accessible to anyone.
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 It really changed my life and the life of this project. Sundance is this very safe environment for young voices who wants to develop their story and dig into it and have advices, and it's kind of a community, like a family that holds your hand and introduce you to the right people and help you emotionally and artistically to go through your dreams and to go to your goal, and not being it can be sometimes you can be very lonely in front of your blank page, and to be able to exchange, to talk, to feel supported, to also have advices from experienced people, and among them like amazing, very, very wonderful artists. It's such a joy. You're like, okay, I can reach out to someone. You make also friends with your fellows. And more than that, you really have to improve your script. You have deadlines. You have to give your versions, and it happens in this resort, which is a beautiful environment, and you spend and you have a lot of resources, and it's just a magical place. And Robert Redford created it in 1981. Because he thought that place, especially, was kind of this magical combination with art and nature, and it was that's going to be in source of inspiration for indie films and to protect also like indie cinema.
Oh, I'm well aware. I went to the Sundance Producers Lab for a project, and they're just incredibly supportive. It's like filmmaker camp in some senses.
It's camp, and for the directing lab, I was so amazed how the organization was. They give you like DP and editors and a full crew so that you can experience directing your scenes and then editing and then prepping and then. So it's a very intense course, but it's kind of like, I never been in film school. I come from acting. So for me, it was like, I learned so much. And with like the best people I could ever learn from. So that was a blessing, yeah.
Well, the film is The Mustang. It's incredible, and it's premiering here at the Sundance Film Festival, and will be released later this year. It's coming out theatrically.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's March 15.
Yes, Well, this must be exciting for you because, a lot of filmmakers come here without distribution.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to get to see your film. So, I just want to say congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm very gifted that the story, which is for me very universal, is going to be seen, hopefully. And for me, being theatrical release is such a treat today. It's not always the case, and it was very important for me. I'm cinephile. I love the experience of going into the cinema, into like this. You have this space of focus, and today it's hard to be focused. I mean, we know that we're so like overwhelmed by a lot of information. So for me, going to cinema to commune with a film, is definitely like an experience that I'm happy to share with an audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So I'm here with the cast of Mope, whose film premiered here at the Sundance Film Festival at the Egyptian Theater, midnight screening with a raucous crowd. I mean, I have to say that crowd they went nuts for it. You couldn't have had a better crowd. So,
totally.
So they loved it. This is a record for the Film Threat podcast. This is the most people that have ever been interviewed on the Film Threat podcast.
We will prove how difficult it is to do.
So I'll just ask questions, and when you speak, just identify yourself. But I know that, like, David, you said something that really impressed me, which was comparing the script to Star 80, which is something that got you to want to be involved in the project. What was it also? I mean, the comedy of the script, and then also the wildly different tones from just hysterical, over-the-top comedy to just going to a dark place. That must have, inspired you to be involved.
Yeah, totally. I mean, somehow Star 80 came up yesterday when we were running around, and that had like a total effect on me when I was a kid. I don't know. I love pinup models and Playboy. And my club Bootsy Bellows was named after my mom, who burlesque danced for a brief period of time. So I've got some kind of Oedipus, freaky, weird, stuff about that. And then the whole Star 80 thing, I just always loved. And I don't know, when I read it, there was a similar tone, because it is about obsession and this sexualized world and the desire to be famous and the desire for respect and love and the pain that has, and then a true event that followed it. So it sort of made sense.
Yeah, well, tell me about this true event that the script is based on.
So it happened in 2010, and the story's about Mopes, which are, to people who don't know, are low-level adult male performers who are trying to make it as big stars, but end up having to do things like gangbangs, bukakis, like extreme things where they just need a lot of dicks. Like on set. So basically, who doesn't? And so once I heard about what that, immediately as any male, around my age, there, I just found the subject matter fascinating. So I met a lot of real people who knew Steve and Tom, and as I got deeper into the story, it unfolded this little world, on the periphery of the adult film industry that I didn't know about, and very few people did, and I thought it would make an amazing film. And then, the story, and then by recruiting tons of people from the industry who knew Steve and Tom, it just made it much more interesting to me.
Well, a question for the cast. Yeah. Was there research done at any level to look at these? I mean, there is your traditional porn, right, which is two people having sex, but it seems like now it's clown shoes, it's like crazy over the top, like the cuckold porn. I mean, there is just like porn that I didn't even know existed, and pretty much if you don't know it exists, you can Google it and find it. Was there any research involved?
Research?
We definitely took a field trip to a couple porn shoots, and we went to like a bukkake shoot, as well as a ball busting studio. So I think Max and I, and did Nathan go to the ball busting one? He didn't.
This was the one where you held the camera.
Yeah.
Check your calendars.
Yeah. Max and I went to a ball busting one. Nathan, Stuart Jarrett, he plays Steve Driver. He and I went to a bukkake one. So it was definitely necessary to go. We felt Lucas recommended it, and we felt that it was
and accompanied us.
Yeah, and accompanied us. It
bunch.
provided some realism to this because we didn't want to just give a fictional story. We wanted to be as honest and truthful as possible.
Well, hi, it's Max. I play Chris, and Chris was there at the shoot. He's obviously a real guy who. Everything that you saw last night really did happen to him. He's got the scars to prove it. So that was research. Just picking his brain, talking to him about what his mind state was before that, what he thought of Steve, how that affected him post the violence, and being there and meeting all the real porn stars and seeing that it's just a real profession and a way of life that a lot of them love and just are very happy to be there on set, doing what they're doing and hanging out with their friends and making money.
And they're very open about anything that we ask them. They're very open about it. If we have any questions, they're geometry, algebra, any of that stuff. They are more than happy to teach us whatever techniques, whatever it is in their porn shoot. You know.
Well, kudos to the whole cast just for going for it. I mean, there wasn't any. It's from that opening scene, which might be one of the most hysterically funny opening scenes of a comedy that I can think of in recent years. I mean, everything down to the dripping mascara.
Yeah.
Oh, the false with it was
But those parts were so sad to me. Like those were, it was like this comedy, and then those little moments were just as like gut punches to me. Like how
that was
dark it
Lucas
felt.
like gave us that permission though. I feel like Lucas was like, we, in order to do the story and the characters, you know, and the real people, like respect and justice.
It does
we can't
like
pull back.
The comedy of it turns on a dime because you are sort of heading one way, and part of it is like, I can't believe this is happening, and then when it goes to that place, I think people are like, oh, that just that happens, you know, and then I like that.
In
like
life. How it went down.
I mean, Kern Saxon, who edited the film, we always talk about how it's a litmus test for your sense of humor, and so like there's definitely things that I find funny that other people don't. Like I find lots of that sequence funny. It's because there's ridiculous stuff. There's a guy choking himself. It's a surreal, over the top moment. But yeah, you could have someone that watches that sees it like a intro to a horror film, and so that's what I found interesting about it, because it doesn't really, it doesn't necessarily tip it off either way. But I think it's crazy.
Yeah.
You were saying that on the set. You were saying that it's like a comedy horror film.
Yeah, right. Like it's like
rom-com.
because it is ridiculous. Yeah, like the stuff that goes on. Some of the stuff is just ridiculous. It's and we definitely want that stuff to be funny.
And the soundtrack is really amazing.
Oh my God, the soundtrack is so great.
Thank you.
Yeah, just totally, enhances the tone of the film.
Thank you.
But and someone asked a question last night that I think that the Q&A could have gone on much longer during the post screening. But there was a question that was asked about nudity and professionalism.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not sure I 100% agree with that question.
Yeah.
In the sense that, of course, you guys are all professionals. You're standing on stage and whatnot, and anyone that's been involved in any nude photography, like everyone in this room and whatnot, it can actually get kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it really comes down to, it's more technical stuff with lighting and whatnot. I've had I know Annie Cruz personally just from going to San Diego Comic-Con and she's a cosplayer and no longer involved in the adult world, but what was like some of the what was it like on the set?
Sure.
And someone also asked about improving. Was there a lot of that and whatnot? Because it just seemed like there were just so many great bits that you could go 100 different ways.
In terms of like having the nudity and stuff on the set, 90% of my focus on the movie was making sure people were comfortable, and that was really almost all I was concerned about. I probably doing a scene, we would block it out, and I would for anybody in the film there was a very rigid set of how to behave, and a zero tolerance for anything. And we had zero problems because everybody knew how to behave. But I set that very clear from the beginning. And in terms of improv, there was tons. Yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the improv moments that you might be able to share with us?
I mean, when we were doing the ball kicking scene, I think I improvised pretty much all the getting them to do all of that and stuff. So.
That was your idea, right?
Yeah, I think so. But he was just like, have them do this scene. I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
Did you have, for that scene talking about, did you have stunt balls?
It was yours, actually.
Yeah, that's
his.
Stunt balls.
No, it's not. Basically, that
those
shot,
are my balls.
Yeah, that shot is
That was
real
Brian that
Eric's,
answered
the
that.
real Eric's balls.
Is it?
Yes.
Is it?
No. Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
You don't reckon.
Oh,
They
that
can't see
makes
the
me.
nod.
Wow. I thought it was a.
I guess I just assumed you would have made like some sort of
Fake
balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, fake
Yeah.
balls.
Fake balls are
I
so
thought it was
It was like a dance.
I couldn't find my balls.
That's amazing. That blows my mind because I was told it was going to be a prosthetic insert thing. I was like, yeah, that's cool. That sounds cool. And then, it's a human being.
You
Okay.
didn't recognize those puppies?
It's just the right number of frames of the balls.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, like a quick.
Oh, that hurt me.
Yeah.
Now, it was wildly enthusiastic response last night night at the screening. Perfect audience for this film. Okay. But I'm curious how you think other audiences might react to this. How do you think they're going to see it?
I don't think there's any way. I mean, it is that range of, like you were saying, the litmus test of what people find funny or what's attractive, what's interesting, what's repulsive, how much they're interested in being repulsed, that kind of stuff.
You said that there's no middle ground. People aren't going to leave being like, I think people are going to feel something, like either disturbed or think it's hilarious or
this will break up
shocked.
Families.
I'm glad it's not premiered in Utah.
You'll be affected. You'll leave having felt something.
Yeah.
Which is the goal.
I definitely think it's a cinephilia kind of movie, like a cinephiles movie. Like if people that love movies are going to love this. It's very in the style of Sundance, and it's independent in all ways and original, and so I think real film lovers will love it. Actually,
absolutely. I think also people are so used to seeing behind the curtain of everything now. They know about movie making. They know about everything. So it's just like a glimpse into this world, but it's truly a story about friendship and fame and dreams and wanting to make something of your life. And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Well, I think it's over the top as the film goes. At times, it is rooted in that heart, really, that friendship. So, congratulations, kudos. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
You have a huge crowd.
Thank you so much.
That was good.
Get him with the high. Let's all go fuck.
Sorry.